Pay attention to 49-year-old Suzanne Morphew. At 2:11 p.m., she sends a selfie to her secret lover. A simple photo, but it's proof of life. Proof that Suzanne is still here. And proof that she's planning an escape. The woman in that picture isn't afraid. She looks ready to leave her marriage. But Suzanne has less than 30 minutes to live, because the man pulling up the driveway isn't just a jealous husband. He's a big game hunter, and he isn't planning a divorce. He's planning something far more final. Barry Morphew is about to sedate his wife, using the same tranquilizers he uses to take down deer, drugs designed to immobilize animals weighing hundreds of pounds. This is the story of a woman who wanted out, a husband who used deer tranquilizers in his farming business, and autopsy results that would later reveal animal sedatives in Suzanne's bone marrow, chemicals that, in that entire area, only one person had access to: Barry Morphew. Suzanne Morphew was trapped in a marriage she desperately wanted to escape. For 2 years, she'd been having an affair with Jeff Libler, a former high school acquaintance from Indiana. They'd rekindled their connection on Facebook in 2018, creating secret accounts on LinkedIn and WhatsApp to hide their relationship. They met in New Orleans, Florida, Michigan, romantic getaways where Suzanne could be herself, not the wife of Barry Morphew. But on May 6, 2020, Suzanne sent Barry a text that would seal her fate. "I'm done. I could care less what you're up to and have been for years. We just need to figure this out civilly." Barry saved a screenshot of that message. He knew his marriage was over. He knew Suzanne was planning to leave. And 4 days later, on Mother's Day, Suzanne disappeared. Barry told police his wife had gone on a bike ride that morning. He claimed he was out of town on a work trip in Broomfield, Colorado. Their 2 daughters, Macy and Mallory, were away on a church camping trip. When a neighbor reported Suzanne missing on May 10, 2020, Barry's story seemed plausible. A woman goes for a bike ride in the Colorado mountains. Something happens. She doesn't come home. Investigators found Suzanne's bicycle and helmet, but they were in separate locations near the family home, a detail that immediately raised red flags. You don't fall off your bike and have your helmet land somewhere completely different. You don't abandon your bike in one spot and walk away, leaving your helmet elsewhere. The scene didn't make sense. Despite exhaustive searches involving drones, dogs, and volunteers across Chaffee County's rugged terrain, Suzanne was gone without a trace. But investigators weren't convinced this was an accident. They were convinced Barry Morphew knew exactly where his wife was. Cell phone records told a story Barry didn't want investigators to hear. On May 9th, the day before Suzanne was reported missing, Barry's phone was pinging all around the house. Not in one location, not stationary, moving constantly around the property. When questioned about this unusual activity, Barry had an explanation ready. He was shooting chipmunks. He claimed chipmunks were a constant nuisance on the property. He said he'd shot 85 chipmunks in the 2 years he'd lived there. He was just running around the property that day, taking care of pests. Nothing suspicious about it. But neighbors didn't recall hearing gunshots. No one reported disturbances. And despite Barry's claim of killing 85 chipmunks over 2 years, investigators found no physical evidence of dead chipmunks anywhere on the property. The chipmunk story didn't hold up. Digital vehicle forensics on Barry's Ford truck revealed even more concerning discrepancies. The data showed the truck doors were opening and closing at times when Barry claimed he was sleeping. Someone was using that truck. Someone was going somewhere. And Barry's timeline didn't match the evidence. As investigators dug deeper into the Morphew's marriage, the picture of marital bliss Barry painted began to crack. In early interviews, Barry characterized his marriage as the best and claimed they'd had a wonderful weekend before Suzanne disappeared. But Suzanne's friends told a different story. She'd confided in them that she was unhappy. She'd discussed divorce plans. Electronic evidence recovered from her devices revealed a note of problems in the relationship. Then investigators discovered Jeff Libler, Suzanne's 2-year affair, the secret accounts, the romantic rendezvous across multiple states, and the final photo Suzanne sent to Libler at 2:11 p.m. on May 9th, just 32 minutes before Barry returned home that day. That was Suzanne's last known electronic communication with anyone. Jeff Libler, married with 6 children, hadn't come forward immediately after Suzanne vanished. He'd deleted his social media accounts to protect his family and job. But when the FBI contacted him, he cooperated fully, providing DNA samples and alibis that cleared him of any involvement. Libler wasn't a suspect. He was evidence that Suzanne's marriage to Barry was over. Perhaps the most damning piece of evidence was something Suzanne herself had created. Suspecting Barry of having an affair, she'd purchased a voice-activated spy pen to record him. Ironically, the pen captured intimate conversations between Suzanne and Libler instead of incriminating Barry. While it didn't prove Barry was cheating, it provided investigators with deep insight into just how broken the marriage really was. In May 2021, exactly 1 year after Suzanne disappeared, Barry Morphew was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. The prosecution's case relied heavily on circumstantial evidence: the crumbling marriage, Barry's inconsistent alibis, the cell phone data, the vehicle forensics, the bike and helmet found in separate locations. They didn't have a body. They didn't have a murder weapon. But they believed they had enough to convict. They were wrong. In April 2022, just before the trial was set to begin, the case collapsed. The charges were dismissed without prejudice, meaning prosecutors could refile them if new evidence emerged. But the dismissal was humiliating. The 11th Judicial District Attorney, Linda Stanley, had mishandled the case catastrophically. Stanley was accused of conducting inappropriate interviews with true crime YouTube shows during the active investigation. She'd failed to meet discovery deadlines. She'd committed prosecutorial misconduct so egregious that she was eventually disbarred by the Colorado Supreme Court in 2024. Barry Morphew's defense team filed a lawsuit alleging wrongful charging and tunnel vision. And Barry walked free, maintaining his innocence, claiming he'd been persecuted for a crime he didn't commit. For nearly a year and a half, it appeared Barry Morphew might escape justice entirely. He left Colorado and relocated to Cave Creek, Arizona, a small town north of Phoenix. He moved into a mobile home in the Stardust Trailer Park, a stark contrast to the affluent residence he'd shared with Suzanne in Colorado. And according to prosecutors and witnesses, he started living a secret life under aliases. People in Arizona knew him as Lee, his middle name, or Bruce. A bar manager in Cave Creek knew him only as Bruce until news of his re-indictment broke. A woman named Libby Spruill met him at a bar in March 2024 and asked if he was Barry Morphew. He denied it. Later, an acquaintance introduced him as Lee from Indiana. Prosecutors allege he used these aliases to conduct business, discussing stock values and rental income from properties while pretending to be someone else. But in September 2023, everything changed. Investigators searching in connection with an unrelated case discovered human remains in a shallow, clandestine grave near Moffat, Colorado, approximately 40 to 45 minutes south of the Morphew residence. The remains were skeletal. The location was known locally as the Boneyard, and the body was identified as Suzanne Morphew. A board-certified anthropologist, alongside botanists and entomologists, analyzed the burial site. Their conclusion was critical. It was unlikely Suzanne decomposed from a fresh body to a skeleton at this location. The evidence suggested Suzanne's body had been moved at least twice after her murder. She hadn't died in the San Luis Valley where she was found. She'd been killed elsewhere, allowed to decompose, and then transported to this remote grave. This detail countered any argument that a stranger or random attacker had killed Suzanne. A stranger doesn't kill someone, store the body somewhere else for months, and then move skeletal remains to a secondary burial site 40 miles away. That level of planning, that level of knowledge about the area, that level of access to Suzanne's body, it pointed to someone close to her. It pointed to Barry. The autopsy, completed in 2024, ruled Suzanne's death a homicide by undetermined means in the setting of butorphanol, azapirone, and medetomidine intoxication. That specific combination of chemicals has a name in the veterinary world: BAM. And BAM is not something most people have access to. BAM is a potent tranquilizer mixture used for sedating large animals. It's not FDA approved for human use. It doesn't cause instantaneous sedation. It takes several minutes to take effect, rendering the recipient immobile and vulnerable. And the presence of BAM in Suzanne's bone marrow was the smoking gun prosecutors had been missing for 3 years. Barry Morphew, a former deer farmer in Indiana, had a documented history of using BAM to sedate and transport deer. Prescription records showed Barry last purchased BAM in March 2018. But investigators allege he admitted to using it in Colorado as recently as April 2020, just 1 month before Suzanne disappeared, to tranquilize a deer on his property. The indictment states that records show only one private citizen living in that entire area of the state had access to BAM, Barry Morphew. Only one person in that entire region had the training, the experience, and the access to the exact combination of chemicals found in Suzanne's bones: Barry Morphew. During the initial investigation in 2020, agents had found a small, clear plastic cap in the family's dryer. At the time, they couldn't definitively identify what it was, but investigators now believe that cap belongs to a syringe used to inject chemicals into a tranquilizer dart. Barry admitted to knowing how to use such darts for his trophy deer collection. But no working tranquilizer gun was found in the home, and his DNA was not recovered from the cap. Toxicology tests confirmed the presence of all 3 BAM chemicals in Suzanne's bone marrow. The chief toxicologist noted that Suzanne's body had begun to metabolize the drug before she died. This means death was not immediate following injection. She didn't die instantly. The drugs took time to work. And during that time, Suzanne may have been conscious, aware, trying to escape or fight back before the chemicals rendered her completely immobile. In June 2025, a grand jury returned an indictment charging Barry Morphew with first-degree murder. He was arrested in Arizona and extradited to Colorado. Despite living in a trailer park, Barry was able to post a $3 million cash bond, evidence that despite his modest living arrangements, he maintained significant assets including rental income and stocks. On January 12, 2026, Barry Morphew appeared in an Alamosa County courthouse and pleaded not guilty. Through his attorney, David Beller, Barry waived his right to a speedy trial, citing the massive amount of data and anticipated length of proceedings. The trial is scheduled to begin on October 13, 2026, and is expected to last up to 6 weeks. Barry's defense team continues to argue that the government is suffering from tunnel vision, allowing a predetermined conclusion to lead their search for evidence. They point out that Barry hadn't had a lawful prescription for BAM since 2018 in Indiana. They emphasize that law enforcement didn't find BAM in the Morphew residence during their searches. They highlight a partial DNA profile found in the case that allegedly matched an out-of-state sex offender, arguing this evidence points to an alternative suspect. Prosecutors have dismissed the partial DNA marker as having no weight. They've pointed to the totality of evidence: the failing marriage, the "I'm done" text, the cell phone pings, the vehicle data, the chipmunk alibi that neighbors can't corroborate, the bike and helmet in separate locations, the body moved at least twice, and the BAM in Suzanne's bones, chemicals only Barry had access to in that entire region. Throughout the investigation and legal battles, the Morphew's daughters, Mallory and Macy, have stood firmly by their father. During bond hearings, they argued for his release. Judge Hopkins noted their support was a significant factor in granting bond, stating, "The 2 most significant victims of this matter are strongly supportive of Mr. Morphew's innocence. As the children of the deceased, the daughters are considered statutory victims. Their stance has humanized Barry in the eyes of the court. But legal analysts note they were not present at the home during the window of the alleged murder. They cannot testify to what happened between their parents on May 9th and 10th, 2020. They only know the father they love, not necessarily the husband Suzanne wanted to escape." The case against Barry Morphew rests on a combination of motive, opportunity, and forensic evidence. Suzanne wanted out of her marriage. She'd told Barry she was done. She'd been planning her exit with the help of a lover Barry didn't know about. And 4 days after that "I'm done" text on Mother's Day weekend, when their daughters were away on a camping trip, Suzanne disappeared. Remember her name, Suzanne Morphew. She deserved to escape her marriage safely. She deserved to build a new life with someone who made her happy. She deserved to watch her daughters grow up. Instead, she sent a final photo to her lover at 2:11 p.m., and less than 24 hours later, she was gone, sedated with animal tranquilizers, her body hidden in a shallow grave for nearly 4 years.